Welcome to Choose Better Living, where we come together to talk about books and subjects that leave a deep and lasting echo in each of our memories. Counselling for Toads, a psychological adventure, is a well-known work by Robert DeBoard, a psychologist and an experienced lecturer in the field of counseling. Through the metaphorical story of Toad as he enters the process of psychological therapy, the author skillfully translates complex psychological concepts into simple and accessible language. In doing so, the book helps readers gain a deeper understanding of their own emotions, their relationships, and the process of inner healing. With that in mind, I would like to invite you to pause for a moment and think back to your own childhood. Is there a memory that still brings you a great sense of joy whenever it comes to mind? Or perhaps there is something from that time that continues to trouble you, something that feels like a lingering shadow even now. What many of us do not fully realize is that childhood experiences are not merely memories left behind in the past. They actively shape who we are today. It would not be an exaggeration to say that the child within us gives birth to the adult we become. In this summary, I will walk you through how the book explains the powerful influence childhood has on our present lives. The author introduces a framework that describes 3 psychological states that form the structure of every individual's personality. These are the parent ego state, the child ego state, and the adult ego state. The term parent here does not only refer to biological parents, but more broadly to those who raised and guided us during our early years. According to the book, these 3 ego states take turns influencing how we think, feel, and respond to the situations we encounter in everyday life. As the book moves deeper into its explanation of personality structure, it begins with what is known as the child ego state. In this state, we tend to act in ways that closely resemble how we behaved during childhood, especially in response to how our parents treated us. From the moment we are born, every child experiences 5 basic emotions: happiness, affection, anger, sadness, and fear. These emotions are expressed directly through behavior. When a baby feels angry, they cry loudly. When they feel joy, they laugh freely and without restraint. The way parents respond to these behaviors leaves a deep and lasting imprint on the child. Over time, these original emotional reactions do not disappear. Instead, they gradually develop into habits and increasingly complex and subtle patterns of behavior. What begins as a simple emotional response slowly becomes a core part of who we are. This core shapes a portion of our personality and continues to influence how we behave throughout our lives. As a result, when we encounter certain situations or circumstances as adults, we often respond automatically from this early emotional perspective, without realizing where it comes from. To make this clearer, imagine a child raised by very strict parents. In order to avoid being scolded or physically punished, the child may learn to comply with their parents' wishes and agree with them in everything. This strategy is not a conscious choice at first. It is a form of emotional adaptation, a way for the child to feel safe. Over time, this adaptation becomes central to the child's inner world. Other behaviors grow and develop around this center, reinforcing the same pattern again and again. Of course, as we grow older, many other events and experiences shape us along the way. Life continues to leave its mark. Yet the earliest experiences form our starting point, and they cannot simply be denied or erased. In this sense, the book emphasizes that parents influence our consciousness from the very beginning. Building on this understanding, the book then turns to what is known as the parent ego state. When we are operating from this state, we tend to behave in the same ways our parents once did. It is important to remember that they were the first people we ever encountered, and because of that, their influence on us is beyond measure. The parent ego state contains all the values, rules, and moral standards that we absorb from them from the very beginning of life. Their words and actions shaped our earliest years, and their impact almost certainly extends into the rest of our lives. To see how this works in everyday behavior, consider someone whose parents were consistently judgmental, angry, and strict. It is easy to understand why that person might grow up and display similar behaviors toward others. However, There's another possible expression of the same influence. Instead of directing judgment and anger outward, the individual may present themselves as apologetic and obedient to the entire world, never daring to criticize anyone else, while directing harsh judgment, anger, and strictness inward toward themselves. Even so, the book makes it clear that we are not merely copies of our parents. No matter how powerful their influence may be, our individuality ensures that we are more than replicas of those who raised us. We are shaped by them, but we remain independent individuals. From there, the discussion moves into the adult ego state, the final psychological state, in which our behavior is guided by reason rather than by emotion, unlike the two states described earlier. When we are in the adult ego state, we are able to deal with reality as it exists here and now. It is a state that allows us to plan, reflect, make decisions, and take action. When we are operating from this place, our responses are rational and logical. All of the knowledge and skills we have are available for immediate use. We are no longer driven by the internalized voices of our parents, nor are we trapped in emotional patterns rooted in childhood. Instead, we are able to examine the present situation and decide what to do with it based on the facts of the moment. This state holds particular importance because it is the only one in which we are capable of learning something genuinely new about ourselves. When we are in the child state, we relive childhood emotions, both pleasant and painful. Our thinking circles back to earlier situations, and we experience the same feelings again, but no new understanding is gained. When we are in the parent state, we are repeating the words, behaviors, beliefs, and values that we learn from our parents. That state is marked by certainty and leaves no room for new ideas or new knowledge. Put simply, these two states function as conditioned responses, while the adult state is a conscious one. Only when we are in the adult state are we able to consider new information, evaluate our own behavior, and listen to how others perceive us without immediately trying to reject what we hear. This is an extremely difficult thing to do. No one can force another person into their adult state. Each of us alone must choose to respond from that place. After taking all of this in, how do you feel? Do you notice a sense of anger toward your parents or a desire to blame them for shaping parts of who you are today? That reaction is understandable, but as the book gently reminds us, blame does not take away our unhappiness or heal our wounds. It does not make the pain disappear. At some point, we are left with only one real option, which is to accept these parts of ourselves and recognize that only we can help ourselves heal. No one else can do that work for us. So instead of blaming, which is exactly how the child ego state tends to respond, what if we chose responsibility instead? That choice is deeply adult in nature, and of course it is extremely difficult. Still, it carries far greater long-term value than placing responsibility on others. As for our parents, the book invites us toward forgiveness, not because what happened was acceptable, but because holding on to resentment keeps us tied to the past. I believe that every one of us carries some form of psychological wound, whether small or large. If that wound is small enough that it does not interfere with your daily life, then that is wonderful, and you were fortunate to have a very gentle childhood. But if the wound runs deeper, there is no need to feel afraid or alone. You are not the only one. The first thing to feel grateful for is the fact that you have become aware of that inner imbalance. Awareness itself is already a step toward healing. Once you see it, the important thing is not to ignore it, but to begin caring for it, to help myself regain emotional balance, understand who I am, and remain optimistic in a world that is not always kind. There are several practices I return to often. I write about my emotions and note the things I feel grateful for each day. I work on learning new skills and make time for my personal interests. I watch, study, and read in order to understand myself more deeply and to give myself many new perspectives. I try to take better care of myself overall. And perhaps most importantly, I believe in meditation, even though I admit that this is something I am still struggling to practice consistently. In closing, there is only one message I truly want to leave you with. Allow yourself to stumble. Allow yourself to make mistakes, and to suffer. The deeper the pain, the more powerful it can become as a motivation to change. When life has reached its lowest point, the only possible direction is upward. When you are hurting, allow yourself to cry. Cry fully. And once the tears pass, remember this: everything that happens does so for a reason. Every person you meet is someone you needed to meet. If someone changes and leaves your life, let them go. Life is impermanent, and the universe may simply be trying to protect you. These ways of thinking carried me through periods of heartbreak, not only from romantic relationships, but also from friendships and even family bonds. And I hope, in some small way, they can help you too.